Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After running through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. Lots of stuff to discuss on today's show. Obviously the draft happened over the week. Really excited about that. A lot of interesting free agent rumors surrounding the Dolphins. The Dolphins still have a ton of cap space left. They have over just about $20 million in cap space left, so they can still make some pretty big impact signings in the free agent market. So let's get into that. That leads us into our first news story. This comes from Sports Illustrated. Drew Rosenhaus tells Sports Illustrated he's had discussions with the Dolphins regarding both Carlos Dunlap and Akeem Hicks. So this would be a huge addition to the team, or additions to the team. I think the one that I think would make deep, and I hope the Dolphins are actually seriously pursuing this. And if you don't know, before we continue on, Drew Rosenhaus represented literally all of their free agent signings, pretty much all the free agent signings the Dolphins made this offseason. So obviously Drew Rosenhaus and the Miami Dolphins have a pretty dang good connection. He was a huge part of Tyreek Hill coming down here. So obviously those two, the organization and that agent, have a good relationship. So obviously this news is very credible, and this could very well happen, which would be a huge deal. But out of Carlos Dunlap and Akeem Hicks, the ones that I think excites me the most and I think would make the biggest impact is Akeem Hicks. Akeem Hicks would be one of the best additions that the team has made this offseason. He has a ton of football left in him. It would give the Dolphins the best defensive tackle rotation, by far, in my opinion, in the National Football League. And obviously it would help in the run game a lot. He's one of the best run defenders in the National Football League. And it would really, I think, elevate the defense into another level as well. Not that it's already great, but it would make it even more consistent on first and second down. It would help the linebackers out a lot. It would just do a whole lot to help the team. The reason Akeem Hicks is no longer on the Chicago Bears is obviously because of his health. His health hasn't been great, but when he would be joining this team, or joining the rotation of the defensive tackle unit, I should say, he wouldn't have to play that much. He would just have, we could definitely use him situationally, and he's playing with a lot of really talented defensive tackles too, so he wouldn't get that many snaps. He could be healthier, so I think this would be a 10 out of 10 fantastic signing if the Dolphins were able to get this done. And really help out the defense, and like I said, especially being more consistent on first and second down, and like I said, it would help the linebackers out a lot. So Akeem Hicks would be, and he's still, like I said, one of the premier interior defenders in the league, so that would be a really awesome signing. Hopefully they can get that done, because that would be great. Carlos Dunlap, on the other hand, is definitely, it would be interesting. I think some of the things that he could add to the team, he definitely wouldn't be a starter, obviously. I think he could still be, and it still is, a really good run defender and a physical player. The Dolphins could use him inside and outside because he is such a strong player. And he still has some pass rush to him. Obviously had a pretty productive year last year with Seattle, and played well enough to where he could definitely he could be a starter on a team. But I think he could help the Dolphins in first and second down situations. Maybe if we're playing a run-heavy team, more of a physical team, he would get a little bit more snaps on first and second down. Definitely still have some pass rush ability there too, and would help probably, even without the additions of Carlos Dunlap and Akeem Hicks, one of the deeper front seven units in the National Football League. And if they were able to add these two to it, there is not a team, maybe other than not even the Buccaneers, there isn't a team in the league that would have that much quality depth on the front seven. So if they were able to get both of these guys, it would be I think it would just be an embarrassment of riches at that point. Akeem Hicks, I think, can actually make a huge difference on the team, and his impact would be great because I still think he has a lot of football left in him. Carlos Dunlap would just be a cherry on top of the sundae. But either way, if the Dolphins were to get either one of the two, I think they could help the defense in some of the ways that I just said, especially against the run. I think both of those guys could be really good additions for the team to make the front seven more physical and help it against the run. Because both of those guys are really good run defenders. And on third down, maybe they can move Carlos Dunlap inside because he is such a strong player. And that could if they were able to have Carlos Dunlap rush inside with some of the edge rushers that the Dolphins have in the linebacker unit with Jerome Baker, it would be the most athletic front seven probably. I can't, maybe other than the Cowboys or the Buccaneers, like those are the other teams that come to mind when I think of athletic front sevens. But you want to talk about an athletic front that a mobile quarterback would have to deal with those guys on the field on third down. That would be a handful to deal with. Sorry, guys. Got stuff stuck in the throat, and I know the mic still isn't great, but bear with me. So yeah, that's really cool news. One thing I will say before we move on and get into some of the draft news, there's actually one news story we have to cover before we get into the draft, but J.C. Treader is still out there. Hopefully the Dolphins are looking into him. They definitely need depth at the center position. I still really like Michael Dieter. I still think he is a starter in the National Football League and played really well at the end of the year and fits the scheme really well. And helped our run offense at the end of the year. He really helped it get it going. So he fits Mike McDaniel's scheme, but they don't have any depth there. And obviously Michael Dieter dealt with injuries last year. It's weird that we haven't heard more stuff with J.C. Treader in the Miami Dolphins. Hopefully maybe that starts to kind of get going. J.C.'s obviously played guard in the past in his career, so he has a lot of versatility there as well. I don't know. I don't really understand why the Dolphins, and we haven't really seen that connection. J.C. Treader is a really good player, so that's another free agent to keep your guys' eye on if you guys are wondering about that. But if the Dolphins were able to add any of those three players, the offseason would just get that much better. So let's move on to this news story before we get into some of the draft news. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins have picked up Christian Wilkins' fifth-year option. I think Christian has gotten better every single year. He broke a defensive tackle record last year. I think it was like the most tackles a defensive tackle, obviously solo tackles, in the history of the NFL. I think that's what the record was. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was, which is insane. Christian Wilkins is one of the more athletic defensive linemen in the league. Yeah, he's a really good player, very underrated. Obviously, the stats are going to jump out at you, but Christian Wilkins is a really good player. And one of the better first-round picks that the Dolphins have had in a long time. So Christian Wilkins has earned that. It's nice that we will have him for the foreseeable future. Hopefully he can earn a big contract this year and stay with the team and finish his career in Miami. Because, he's a fan favorite. He's a really good player. Obviously, from everything that we've seen since he's been here, great locker room guy, great leader on the defense. Was here when it was getting put together. It would just be nice to see him retire, Finn. So let's get into the draft. Which was really exciting, and I think the Dolphins, there was a clear message, well, not message, but a clear, we have to address the linebacker room, and I think they did a really good job at that. So let's get into the draft here. So the first pick the Dolphins had, obviously, was in the third round of the draft, and they ended up going with a linebacker at pick 102, and Channing Tindall, who is a really athletic linebacker, and they actually had a lot of really good linebackers. This is a really deep linebacker draft, and there was two really good ones on the board, and I actually think this was the right way to go. I think Channing has a really bright future in the NFL. His athletic physical traits are off the charts. He has, if he would have stayed in the NFL, or in college one more year, and gotten more playing time, I think he would have been a first-round pick. He has traits that first-round picks have, and I think he has a bright future in the NFL. And like Chris Greer said in the press conference, his arrow is still trending up, and you see that when you watch him. When he was able to get on the field, he was making plays all over the field, making tons and tons of splash plays. But I think the thing that sticks out with Channing and what he would bring to the team, and out of everybody they drafted, I think this is obviously, it was their first pick, but I think he's going to get serious playing time, whether it's on third down or spying, people like Josh Allen or the tons and tons of mobile quarterbacks that are in the National Football League. He's going to be phenomenal at that. I think you're going to see Channing on third down a lot. I think you're going to see him blitzing, which he was really, really, really good at in college. And like I said, just adding him to that front seven, it's just the amount of speed the Dolphins will have on third down is really special. And Channing's going to help on third down pass rush, and obviously all the blitzing crazy stuff that we do. He's made for that. He's made for that. So I think this is an impact player and an impact pick that he will contribute a lot this upcoming season. I think we'll make a lot of splash plays. I wouldn't be surprised if Channing had a really good rookie year in this defense, because he's such a scheme fit. He's physically, the dude ran a 4.4 at linebacker, and is a physical linebacker. He's not soft, he's not like a Dalen Buchanan or someone who has transitioned from safety to linebacker like Mark Barron. He's a very physical, he's a natural linebacker, he's a physical linebacker. So, I have no issues with him getting hit by a guard or getting lost in the trash or something like that. He's physical enough to live on the line of scrimmage. You could even play him at outside linebacker, which I'm sure the Dolphins will do a lot. He really doesn't have any weaknesses to his game. Obviously, he had the only thing, he made the transition to middle linebacker coming out of college, and that's obviously been the knock on him, is he hasn't gotten enough playing time at that position. He's kind of really new to that position. So if he can just learn the NFL game and learn the position, the sky is the limit for Channing. This is a really good pick, in my opinion. I think it fits the scheme to a T, and I think he's going to make contributions day one. And I think he filled a huge need, which was we had to get faster and more athletic at that position, and they did that. Now they can move Jerome Baker wherever the heck they want to, and we talked about that this offseason, and I think even in the last podcast, where it was like, I hope the Dolphins pick someone that either can sit and learn, or obviously can come out and make an impact. And I think he's not only a player that could sit and learn, and if he did, that's fine too, but I think this is a linebacker that can make big time impact on the defense right now. And like I said, third down, spying the quarterback, blitzing, all of those things. I think you're going to see Channing on third down a lot this upcoming season. And it's going to be interesting to see how they use him and Jerome Baker. And where maybe Jerome will play on the outside a little bit more. Maybe they move Channing inside, which I would be all for. But again, this is a player that is a little bit newer to the position, hasn't gotten a ton of snaps under his belt at that position. So we'll see if maybe he can learn quick. And I think the Dolphins, like I said, I think the easiest thing to say about this player is that they can make it simple for him, and I think that's what they'll do, and just use him in situational areas. And I still think he'll make a big impact. So this is a big time pick for the Dolphins. I really, really liked it. And like I said, he still has a ton of room to get better. And I think like I said, physically and the talent level, like if you would have stayed, like I said, if you would have stayed one more year, I just said, like I said, like 15 times in 2 minutes or 2 seconds. But if you would have stayed in Georgia for another year, I think he would have been a first-round pick. He's that gifted athletically. He just has to learn the position, and if he does, the sky's the limit. Moving on, so I don't repeat myself again. The Dolphins made a really interesting pick. Obviously, they didn't have a second round or first round pick. So their next pick was 23 picks later in their fourth round. They went with Eric Kama. I've heard Kanma. I've heard people say it two different ways, but Eric, very interesting player out of Texas Tech. The story was that Wes Welker really pounded the table for this guy. Obviously, Wes Welker, former Texas Tech player himself, former Red Raider, and pounded the table hard for him. And when you watch him play, I've watched 3 games of his. He reminds me a lot of his game. I'm not saying he's going to be this, but he reminds me a lot of Brandon Marshall. Very physical receiver, not the fastest guy in the world, but knows how to play the game, knows how to use his body, knows how to use his strength to get open, and you can't leave him on one-on-one coverage because he'll take advantage of that. At least he did in college. And when you look at his production, it's a lot lower than it should have been. I think when you watch him play, it's like, how did this guy not get 1,000 yards? Like it's very weird when you look at it. I think he only had 4 touchdowns and 702 yards. His last season in college, and obviously Texas Tech throws that living heck out of the ball. So it's really weird that he didn't have any more as much he should have more production. I don't know if it was because of the quarterback or whatever the heck was going on there, but he definitely should have had more production than he did. Really talented player. I could see this guy. I could easily see him being a number 2 in the NFL, and we'll see what happens with him. But physical receiver, bigger receiver, plays big, and that's something the Dolphins really don't have. Like, Preston Williams is a big receiver, but he's not physical. And he's not really that great after the catch. And Eric is fantastic after the catch. You know, he took handoffs in college a lot. Obviously, Mike McDaniel's going to like that. You know, kind of similar to Debo. He's not nowhere near the athlete that Debo Samuel was, but he's a physical, tough runner. A little bit more similar to Robert Woods, I would say, athletically. You know, he's not a burner by any stretch of the imagination, but he is good after the catch, and he is good with the ball in his hands. But I would say, like I said, I think the player he reminded me the most of is kind of like a Brandon Marshall type of receiver. But I don't know. This is an interesting pick. I could see this guy being a sleeper this upcoming season. It's going to be tough to crack the lineup, but Preston Williams definitely is going to have to be worried. It could definitely be a really nice utility player for Mike McDaniel to kind of move around and do some special things with. Lynn Bowden obviously is also on the roster. Similar type of skill set. I think Eric's actually better I think he's way better than Lynn was coming out of college. He's more of a complete receiver than Lynn was coming out of college. And I think Eric can do both. He could be your utility guy, and he has the talent to develop into a really, really nice receiver. And again, has a skill set that no one else really has on the roster. Everybody's kind of, you know, Cedric Wilson is a taller receiver, but he's not a physical receiver. He's more of a burner, really good route runner, fast after the catch, not physical after the catch. They don't really have a big physical 50-50 ball receiver, and I think Eric could totally do that for them if they and be a really good red zone player, good short yardage player, and like I said, a really good trick play type utility guy as well. So I really like this pick. You know, when we first picked him, I was like, what in the world? Like, very odd. Obviously, the depth in that room is insane. So I was like, why in the world would we pick a receiver? Maybe we could have gone, you know, a little bit more interior there. But when you watch him play, you understand it. He has like I said, I could see him becoming something pretty special. We'll see if it translates to the NFL. So yeah, I really like this pick a lot. I was trying to think of another physical or just like bigger receiver that isn't a burner but is good, you know, like taking handoffs. I mean, AJ Brown is kind of like that, but I think Eric is not as athletic as AJ Brown. Doesn't have that startup or explosion that AJ has. It's hard to kind of comp this dude, to make a comparison to Eric. The closest thing I could think of was Brandon Marshall. Because Brandon Marshall was a fantastic physical run after the catch receiver, and I think that's what Eric's game will be in the NFL. So that's the closest thing I could come to. But it definitely reminded me of Brandon, at least watching him in college, watching some of those. It's amazing to me how, like, you can just find any college, like, you can literally find 14-minute videos of a snap a player has taken, like, every snap a player has taken on YouTube. Highly recommend you guys go watch Eric. He's a really fun player to watch. And like I said, his production, it's weird. He should have had more production than he did. I don't know what Texas Tech's doing down there, but they should have looked towards him a little bit more. The next pick the Dolphins made was in the 7th round. And pick 224, almost 100 picks later, they selected Cameron Good, linebacker out of Cal, excuse me. And this one, he reminded me of, and I've seen all of these players play quite a few times now, but especially after the draft, he reminded me of like a less athletic Kyle Van Noy. I don't really see Cameron Good making the team. I'm going to be honest with you guys. He has some potential. He's a versatile player, obviously fits the bill for a Dolphins outside linebacker and what they want in an outside linebacker, coverage guy. Is really good on the line of scrimmage on the edge, so fits that outside linebacker role. But he's not. He just has a really big time uphill climb. He's behind a lot of really gifted players. This is more of like I would say a developmental guy than anything. You know, he's not the greatest athlete in the world. I don't know if he would be a good tweener linebacker on the next level. I just don't think he would be very good in coverage in the NFL. And that's kind of how Cal used him last year. I think where his avenue of success would be in the NFL would be up on the line of scrimmage. He reminded me of kind of like Brennan Scarlett. That's what he reminded me of. He's not the athletic like Kyle Van Noy and can cover anything in the NFL. I don't think that's what he's going to do, but can definitely be someone who can be in rotation on first, second down. Maybe you're playing like a Tennessee Titan, a lot of I formation, a lot of run sets. Cameron Good would kind of be your guy. So a little bit like Brennan Scarlett, and yeah, so not my favorite pick of the draft, but still an interesting player. It definitely fits the scheme. I just don't know how he would make the team, honestly. I don't understand. Not that I don't understand, don't know why I said that. I just don't understand how he's going to, as I say it again, I don't understand how he's going to make the team, is all I will say about that. So definitely out of all the picks, that's definitely the biggest question mark. As I think some music is coming from somewhere. I don't know. Hopefully that's not too distracting to you guys. But anyway, the last pick of the draft of the 2022 NFL draft class is quarterback Skyler Thompson out of Kent State, who I also watched. And this guy's production is pretty bad if you look at his stats, if you look at his stat line. Had some injuries last year to deal with. This guy is more of a developmental quarterback. I don't see him doing too much his rookie year. Maybe he can compete with Teddy Bridgewater, but the Dolphins definitely drafted him off of physical traits. He's a pretty athletic dude, a strong arm quarterback. Obviously played a lot of college football. But yeah, I don't really see too much from him other than he's more of a developmental guy than anything. But who knows? Maybe Mike McDaniel gets his hands on him and he turns into a really good backup in the NFL, or he turns into someone that the Dolphins could maybe trade in the future. Who knows? I think he definitely has the physical gifts to be something like that. But he, despite him playing a lot or a long time in college, his production's kind of low. And like I said, I think this is more of a pick off of physical gifts. More of a developmental guy. Alright, this is just fantastic when, loud music is playing in the background. But anyway, what else? What are you going to do? You can't do much about it. I think that's it for the news. I think we've completely destroyed the news and talked about everything that we could talk about. I don't think I'm missing anything too in serious. So let's get into the fan community where we answer fans' questions. Sorry, guys. This is just not the greatest video in the world. A terrible mic, got things in the background. It's just, this is what it is. You got to push through. This first question comes from Beef. He says, "Hey Skaggs, I didn't understand why we got a wide receiver in the 4th round until I saw the highlights of a player. Do you think it was the right move to get another wide receiver? Do you think Mike McDaniel has plans for him? How can he help the Miami Dolphins?" I think, like I said, he has a skill set that none of the other receivers have. He's a physical, big receiver, and he's good after the catches, and that's exactly what Mike McDaniel wants. It's really refreshing to see the Dolphins understand what their identity is and what they want to be on offense, and that's what they're drafting, which is not something that we can say from previous regimes. But I think Chris Greer and Mike have so far, at least, have done a fantastic job of drafting people that fit what they're trying to do and the identity that they're trying to have on the team. And I think that's exactly what Eric Ezukama, or whatever, I think I said his name right, but I think that's exactly what he does. He fits the scheme, big, physical, and that's what they're looking for, at least in receivers, is after the catch ability, and that's what he does. But I think what he adds that the other guys can't is that physicality, that guy who can push the pile 2 extra 3 yards, who can use in the red zone, more of kind of like a Jarvis Landry type. Jarvis Landry, Brandon Marshall type of a player. So maybe like a little bit of a Hines Ward, He's a great run blocker as well. So that's what he can bring to the team. Excuse me. This next question comes from Beef. He says, and like I said, I like the pick. I like the player. This next question comes from Beef again. He says, "Hey Skaggs, how satisfied are you with the draft? Are you happy with the picks, or do you think we could have gotten other players? Are there any picks making you think, why did we draft him?" No, all of the picks makes sense. Cameron Good's the only one, but he's a 7th-round pick. The Dolphins didn't have a ton of picks. I think for what they had, they did great. I think Eric and Channing have a really good opportunity on the next level of becoming something and becoming starters in this league. And I think Eric has the ability to, like I said, become a starter and maybe be something a little bit more than that. And I think same thing with Channing. Channing could be a Pro Bowler in the NFL. So I actually really like the draft. It's a little bit more of a developmental draft. I will say that it's not. I think Channing for sure is going to play a lot his rookie season. We'll see about Eric. Obviously, he has an uphill climb because of everybody in front of him. It is definitely more of that, but I still liked it. I liked the Channing pick a lot, and I liked the Eric pick a lot. So I liked it for what they had. I thought they did a good job. And what else is? Are there any picks making you think? No. Like I said, I think all those picks. I'm really satisfied with the draft. They did a good job. This next question comes from Bobby. He says, there are still 4 roster spots open for the Dolphins to hit the 90-man offseason limit. Which free agents would you like the Dolphins to bring in? Personally, I would love them to bring in J.C. Tretter to compete with center, with Michael Dieter, and Reuben Foster to compete with the linebacker room, and at least another veteran tackle to compete with our younger talent. Thoughts? I think J.C. Tretter would be amazing. I think out of everybody left in the free agent market, he would be my number one. Akeem Hicks would be fantastic as well. I think that he would just bring the Dolphins defense to even greater heights. And the Dolphins wouldn't have any weaknesses on defense after that. And they honestly don't now. They really don't. I know that people might... I don't know. I think the weakest position on their defense right now is probably nickelback, and it's not even a weak. It's Nick Needham's a pretty dang good player, so yeah, their defense is set. So I would say J.C. Tretter out of everybody, I would want them to bring in. Definitely that center position. This next question comes from KC Fanatic. He says, the Dolphins' defense relies on speed and great cornerbacks who can lock down receivers. Question, can we stop the run, especially from hit-you-in-the-mouth, old-fashioned, tough football teams like the Baltimore Ravens? Well, I mean, we saw that last year. We did. We stopped them. We struggled with the Titans, but it was mostly because of the offense. The offense just kind of was terrible the entire game, and just gave the Titans way too much time on the field. And it just kind of, the Dolphins' defense just kind of collapsed in the second half. But I think adding Akeem Hicks and they added John Jenkins, they re-signed him back. They signed an undrafted free agent defensive tackle. That would definitely extinguish any of those thoughts. But I don't think I would worry about a run-first team now, if it answers your question, Casey. They just have so much depth at the interior position. Raekwon Davis coming back healthy. Obviously dealt with some injuries last year. I really like that unit, that group. This question comes from Daniel. He says, what do you know about the new wide receiver skill set? Can you compare him to another receiver? Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Jarvis and Brandon Marshall. Like, that's his skill set. I think that if I had to compare him to anybody. This next question comes from Richard. He said, what, and maybe a little bit of Hines Ward with his run blocking. This next question comes from Richard. He says, what do you think of the Dolphins drafting Eric Azukama? I think he could be the number 4 receiver and beat out Preston Williams for the job. I think so too. And I think, out of all the Dolphins receivers, the Dolphins, because Chris Greer had drafted a lot of receivers. Jakeem Grant. I'm trying to think of later round guys that didn't work out. Jakeem Grant, the guy from Rutgers that I'm forgetting right now, someone's going to remember down in the comment section below. Obviously, Preston Williams was an undrafted free agent. I think the thing that Eric does differently than those guys is different than those guys. He's a more complete receiver. I could totally see his game translating day one to the NFL, and his health. He's going to, he doesn't have health issues like those guys did. Like Jakeem Grant, God bless him, but he just never was a good receiver. Neither was, and Preston Williams, obviously, the thing that's killed him is just injuries. Who was the Rutgers receiver, dude? It's going to bother me. I'll look that up before we end here. This next question comes from Mark. Let me look this up, guys, right before... I have to look this up. Who was the Rutgers receiver the Dolphins drafted in the mid-rounds? Oh, and Isaiah Ford's another one. Isaiah Ford just was never... He just never had any physically anything great about him. You know, he didn't have any, like, physical attributes you go, oh my god. Like, the thing about Eric is, like, yeah, this dude is a really... He's not only is he great after the catch, but he's strong. And I think those are things that stand out to me. Isaiah Ford really never had anything that I was like, oh my god, like... He just wasn't that physically gifted. And Isaiah Ford was not the the receiver out of Rutgers. He was out of Virginia Tech. I can't remember. Or was it just Virginia? I can't remember where Isaiah Ford played. Somewhere in Virginia. But yeah, Isaiah Ford was not very physically gifted. Jakeem Grant was never a complete receiver. He just was never good at it. And then Preston Williams was just health-ridden. And then the Rutgers guy, who I cannot remember for the life of me, he was just not athletically gifted at all. He was more of a physical receiver as well, a possession guy. He just wasn't... He had nothing about him. He wasn't overly strong, wasn't overly quick, was not great after the catch. He was another guy that just... His physical traits weren't great. What is your name, dude? Sorry, guys. Leonte Carew. There you guys go, from the 2016 NFL Draft. There you go. Yeah, Leonte Carew did catch a touchdown against the San Francisco 49ers, though. So at least there's that. I think, Isaiah Ford has also caught a touchdown in the NFL. But yeah, the thing that Eric is better at than those guys, he actually has a game that translates to the NFL that I can totally see doing it. His physical traits are high level. For someone who was drafted that late in the mid-rounds, he is, like I said, his game is pretty good. And his health, I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. So this is definitely, out of all of those guys that I named, he is better than those guys coming out of college. It's not even close. So yeah, let's get back to Mark's question. Sorry, Mark, we had to figure that out because that was going to bother the heck out of me. This next question comes from Mark. He says, who doesn't make the playoffs from the AFC? The assumption is we're going to make it. Well, who doesn't make it then? If you've watched the Jets over the last few drafts, they've knocked it out of the park. It's going to be interesting. What say you? I was not a fan of some of the only Jets pick, like the Garrett Wilson. I just don't see it. I know people probably think I'm crazy. I don't think. I just not a huge Garrett Wilson guy. I don't know. I'm not worried about the Jets out of all the teams that you just, I definitely think they're obviously going to be better. Their backfield is pretty good. Their offensive line isn't bad. So, similar scheme to us as well, which is going to be a good thing playing them. But they're not better than us. They're not more talented than us. But I see what you're saying, Mark. The AFC is definitely, clearly has gotten better. If I had a chart in front of me right now, the Dolphins, God bless them, we get to play the Nfc North this year, which isn't a very tough division. Some pretty weak teams in that division, with the Bears, Lions, and I think the Packers got significantly worse this offseason. So they got one of the weaker NFC divisions. So at least there's that. I don't know. I don't know. The AFC is pretty hard this year. People got to remember, though, that the Bengals only won one more game than the Dolphins did last year. If the Dolphins could have just won that Atlanta game or Jacksonville game, things would have been a lot different. The Raiders are another team that only won one more game than the Dolphins did, and obviously they barely lost to them. So it's not like they're not close. They're really, really, really close. And I think out of all of those teams that we've mentioned, to be honest with you, I like our roster more. So I think we have a more complete team than they do. So that is it, guys. I know the mic was probably god-awful. If you've made it this far, God bless you. I hope you've enjoyed it. Very excited about the team. Very excited about the season this year. It's going to be fantastic. The team's really good. I'm excited to see Mike McDaniel's impact on the roster. I think that's the most interesting thing about the offseason. The most interesting thing about this upcoming season. Obviously, Waddle and Reek are going to be fun to watch, but I'm very, very excited. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank God we got the fan Q&A working up again. I missed answering questions. I have a really good time doing these videos. The only reason I'm not doing more of them is because the mic is just god awful right now. It sucks. And it sucks I had to do another video like this, but hopefully we can get it fixed in the near future. And I'll see you guys in the next one.